Going on, everyone? John Matrix here. Hope you're all having yourselves a wonderful day wherever you're at, whenever you're watching this. We've got another video here from Pancreas No Work. Today we're going to be checking out a video on Titus, who has had a resurgence in the 40k space. My theory is that Games Workshop is going to kind of make him, I guess, like the main character moving forward story wise. I guess we'll see, but after stuff in Space Marine 2 and then him also being featured in the secret level 40k short video, I feel like he's gonna kind of be the face, at least for the Space Marine side of things, moving forward and pushing kind of the story forward. And my theory is that whatever this Henry Cavill Amazon show is going to be, that Henry Cavill is going to play Titus. That's what my theory is moving forward. So I mean, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's just my theory and speculation. But today we're going to check out a video on Captain Titus, the greatest of them all, by Pancreas No Work. Links will be down below in the description, as always, to the original video without my commentary and reaction, and Pancreas No Work's channel. So please do me a favor, if you enjoy this video of his, be sure to go over to his channel, hit that like button, and check out all of his sponsorships, his membership benefits, all that kind of stuff, if you want to take your support for his channel to the next level. If you'd like to join us when I do these reactions live and take your support from my channel to the next level, there's a join button underneath the video, as well as the link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I offer. So check a look at those, and if that would have any interest for you, if you want to take your support to the next level, that's one way to do it. But regardless, thank you guys for coming in, hanging out, checking out the video. I greatly appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do so. So without further ado, jump into this. Again, this is Captain Titus, the greatest of them all, by Pancreas No Work.
Who doesn't love themselves an ultramarine? I'll tell you who. Idiots. People who think that just because they're the guys in the box that they're bland and boring, that something being popular automatically means it's lesser in some way. Some people just refuse to acknowledge that sometimes a thing is the most popular for a reason. The Ultramarines were the best Space Marine Legion, and are the best Space Marine chapter ever, and anything to the contrary is cope so potent it could form its own Chaos God. But I will admit, for some people at a certain point in time, I can understand kind of people not liking them a bit. A couple books here about the Ultramarines always being the best, a couple books there about the Codex and Guilliman being more revered than the Emperor of Mankind. To those of us not in tune with Matt Ward's clearly correct taste of Ultramarine supremacy, the chapter can feel a bit off. Maybe a bit too stuck up, a bit too obsessed with the Codex, a bit too Mary Sue-y. But even then, there's still some Ultramarines everyone loves. Aenid Thiel, that guy who made it so Space Marine sergeants paint their helmets red back in the Horus Heresy. Malum Kaido, who was a walking, screaming exterminatus, and I'm pretty sure he just got lost on his way to join either the Black Templars or World Eaters. And of course, the one and only Captain Demetrian Titus. He may have been demoted to Lieutenant come Space Marine 2, but he's still a captain in my heart. You may be asking yourself, isn't it better to wait till Space Marine 2 has been fully played through to make this video on the lore? Aren't there gonna be a million other videos about this guy all coming out within like a week from each other? And to that, my answer is yes to both. But I've been doing this for over 3 years, and I like to think I've mostly avoided jumping onto hype trains, so I'm letting myself have a YouTube cheat day just this once. So listen to the tale of Demetrian Titus, a man who I almost guarantee you didn't know the first name of before I just said it. But you know what's even better than a video about Titus? A video about Titus that can get you Space Marine 2 at a discount. And you can do so with Green Man.
Alright, well, I mean, there you go. Check out his sponsors. As I said, we're going to jump forward ahead of his sponsorship stuff here. So, but yeah, check it all out.
From our Demetrian Titus, who for the record I feel very uncomfortable calling by his first name, was born on the Ultramarian agri-world of Tarentus. Tarentus is a mildly interesting world, and feel free to take that as either a backhanded compliment or just simple observation. Everyone lives in these dome cities, and because the planet outside those domes is actually pretty dry, they have to set up moisture traps to capture all that they can.
It's literally
it makes me think of Tatooine if someone decided for some insane reason to build a farming community big enough to feed 500 worlds on it. It's part of a group of other agri-worlds very cleverly named the Three Planets, and at some point they were invaded by orcs before Marneus Calgar kicked them out. It got invaded by a demon prince at one point and the population was massacred, but the planet was eventually cleared back out. This concludes the history of Titus's homeworld. I don't know why I bothered. Titus himself was the only child of a pretty normal family, no real standout qualities to him. Not too hot, not too cold, not incredibly rich, or anything really noteworthy. But he did end up being selected as a Space Marine aspirant for the Ultramarines 10th Company, and he performed spectacularly during his trials. He was the kind of aspirant to pass every test and make all the instructors impressed with how cool of a dude he was. Sure enough, he would pass the test and become one of the most decorated Marines in the entire chapter, although not without a few black marks on his record. As much as people do, and indeed I did, joke about Malum Cato being a Black Templar colored blue, the Ultramarines being angry as all hell isn't something unheard of. When they were the Warborn, they sometimes had issues with almost World Eaters levels of bloodlust, and to say Guilliman lost his temper a bit during Calth would be an understatement. That second one was definitely under some extreme circumstances, but a Smurf turning purple with rage is something that happens. And sure enough, our boy Titus sometimes had issues keeping his temper under control. That sort of thing is only one that really becomes an issue if it actually harms people though, and it seems Titus brutally murdered anything that got in his way long before it could take advantage of his tantrums. His backstory even takes some time to establish how Leandros, dickhead though he may be, wasn't completely in the wrong for reporting Titus to the Inquisition. Still like 99% in the wrong, but there's a little bit of basis for it. As it turns out, Nemeroth, or whatever the Chaos Sorcerer from the first Space Marine who's completely forgettable compared to Grimskull, wasn't the first time Captain Titus resisted some warp shenaniganery. During a campaign against the Dark Gods, Titus and his squad faced off against a Chaos Sorcerer. Only Titus returned alive to tell of the tale. Now look, what I just said about Leandros already turned a good half of you away from the video. I know Titus is a good lad. We all know Titus is a good lad. But this is the Imperium. One dude conveniently walking away from a Chaos Sorcerer that killed everyone around him, seemingly untouched by the warp, is the kind of thing that sends alarm bells ringing in everyone's mind. And sure enough, Titus had to keep proving himself over and over again after this incident. But because he's a good lad, he was able to do it. Seemingly because in spite of the fact his video game is still a good few hundred years after this happens in universe, he still had his video game protagonist powers at this time. He'd charge in and destroy anyone daring to take on the Ultramarines, facing impossible odds and always bringing glory and honor to his chapter. With a record like he had, it's no wonder they put up with him despite any lingering suspicion. He was just too bad of a dude. 50 years down the line from when he faced that Chaos Warrior, he ended up joining the Ultramarine 2nd Company, led by Severus Agaman. They were out and about doing Ultramarine things, fighting the enemies of mankind and being the best, when Macrog underwent some rather turbulent weather known as a Tyranid Hive Fleet invasion. Rushing to defend their homeworld, they ended up instead joining Imperial forces and cleansing the rest of Ultramar of any lingering Tyranid remnants as the battle had ended by the time they finally arrived. There's another fun way his expanded backstory explains how he's so good at fighting aliens. Though he wasn't part of the Death Watch here, he was explicitly part of kill teams being used to hunt down Tyranids. Since there had to be some restructuring of the Ultramarines on account of their first company being devoured whole, Agaman became the captain of the first.
I mean, yeah, I would explain why he has so much knowledge of the Tyranids and Space Marine 2, because obviously he has experience fighting them.
Company, with Lucian Trajan becoming captain of the 2nd and Titus joining his command squad. After that, we jump forward a century to the next big beat in Titus's life. And I hope you aren't too attached to Mr. Trajan from that one sentence I told you about him, because he's not making it past this one. The 2nd Company went to the planet of Beta Arcturus, and side tangent, I kept thinking for the love of God this was some important planet referenced somewhere else that was incredibly important to the story. Turns out it's not, it's just some system from Mass Effect. Anyways, Bael'Tan was giving this place the old
I was gonna say that name definitely sounded familiar, but...
to buckle their shoe, so the 2nd Company went on in to save the day. Trajan and the command squad rushed in to battle the Autarch, while the ship they went on in engaged the Eldar ones. How exactly a single Space Marine ship was able to survive a concentrated assault by multiple Eldar ones is left unstated, although I believe it's safe to assume that Titus's video game protag powers are so strong they rubbed off on the ship itself. They didn't rub off on poor Trajan, though. While he did manage to kill the Autarch, this was all apparently a clever ruse. While it appeared the Xenos had been driven back, they had actually just faked it and captured a Space Marine in the process. You want to take a guess who that fella was? Do you think it Trajan? Or maybe another Ultramarines character such as Cato Sicarius? Or perhaps even Marnius Calgar himself? Nope, they captured that dickweed Leandros. Rather than leaving him to die, however, Trajan gave temporary command of the 2nd Company to Titus and went to rescue him. The Eldar then sprung the trap, killed him, and Titus himself was forced to intervene and rescue Leandros. Now we know why that bastard was there to begin with in the first Space Marine game. Titus saw a Space Marine get captured by the Eldar and went, yeah, I want him on my command squad. Also, you know me, so I'm gonna complain about elves now. I really don't think an Autarch for a 2nd Company captain and some random Marine is a fair trade. Now, if they sacrificed an Autarch to capture Marnius Calgar, Fair's fair. I can see that being considered an even trade, especially if they can grab the Soul Stone for later so they can shove the dude in a Wraith Lord. But the second company captain, even for a chapter like the Ultramarines, does not seem worth it to get an Autarch killed for that. But his background does need to happen, and his background dictates he becomes the captain of the second company, and sure enough, upon the return to Macragge, Papa Smurf himself promoted Titus to the rank of captain of the second Ultramarines company. Titus never actually wanted to climb the ranks like this. He just wanted to stay a sergeant and happily kill everything that got in his path for the rest.
Definitely does sound like there's a lot of plot armor things happening behind Titus here. Interesting. One could almost say that the Chaos Gods, well, you could say it as that, but, you know, could it be that the Emperor just has certain plans for him? You know, I mean, obviously with the end of Space Marine 2, it seems like the Emperor has much more in store for our man Titus. So it could just be that the Emperor has been manipulating things behind the scenes for our boy Titus, and that's where the plot armor comes. It's actually the Emperor's blessing
of time. But despite his humility, he accepted the role so that he could do right by both his former friend Trajan and Calgar himself. After all, if Calgar says you're good enough, you're probably good enough. And indeed, good enough he was. Using that same strike cruiser that fought the Eldar for some tactical brilliance, the Righteous Fury, he would come to be known as a great example of what an Ultramarine strives to be. An adaptable warrior and tactician who could take on whatever mission he was given. Many throughout the chapter truly viewed him as an exemplary Marine. Likely helping this was his friendship he had gained at some point with Sergeant Sidonis, the cool, grizzled old soldier guy from Space Marine. He helped cool down some of Titus's more rage-fueled decisions and allowed him to excel to even greater heights. All of this makes it even more shocking when Leandros pulled his BS stun, but let it never be said the Imperium and the people in it will ever give someone the benefit of the doubt. And eventually, after a nice and solid 150 years of service as captain of the second company, if I have my timeline right, Space Marine 1 happens. He's got 2 gold ones in Space Marine 1, which is 200 years, so that's about right. And you know, there's only so much I'll talk about here because it's a fun video game you should play. You probably already have, frankly. To briefly summarize, orcs are attacking the planet of Graia because that's what they do. It's a forge world that specializes in making titans, so there's not a chance in hell the Imperium is letting that one fall. Then Titus goes in to save the day. The Codex Astartes does not support this action. Shut the fuck up, Leandros. Titus murders a whole lot of orcs, demons, traitors, is finished with this orc even though he ain't finished with Titus, and then he quick-time events a Chaos Sorcerer to death. Leandros proves that looking a gift horse in the mouth is the Imperium's standard operating procedure, and hands over a Space Marine seemingly immune to chaos corruption to the Inquisition on a silver platter to be tortured. Now initially I figured that, hey, this Inquisitor seems like a bit of a cool guy. His name is Jerome Thrax, and at first I figured he was on Titus's side. He notices that Titus
wasn't there. I forget what happens because I'd never got to finish the first Space Marine game. I'd started playing it before Space Marine 2 came out, and it kept like glitching and bugging out of me and crashing at one point in the game that I just couldn't get past, so I never finished it. But wasn't there like an Inquisitor already in the game that was like going after this artifact? I assume that must mean that Inquisitor died and this is a different one, right? But I was gonna say, wasn't there already an Inquisitor there that could kind of almost clear his name? But I guess if he died and then there's another Inquisitor, then yeah, I don't know.
His injuries were chaos inflicted, which made me think he was a somewhat rational guy. It seemed to me like he was going, hey man, it looks like chaos ran him over with a truck. Are you sure he's a heretic? I figured he was only taking Titus in because better safe than sorry, and he'd at worst get demoted from captain for appearance's sake and because Cato Sicarius needs to happen. But as it turns out, Thrax is not a fan of Space Marine.
Also, funny, right? Because like that. Him saying that like only an agent of chaos could withstand warp exposure like that. I mean, are there not librarians who have been exposed to a lot of warp shenanigans that are not agents of chaos, you know? And I mean, not to speak of anything of the Grey Knights, but I think the Grey Knights are even still amongst the Space Marines kind of secretive, right? I don't know if how many Space Marines actually know about the Grey Knights existing.
Which is actually a surprisingly common viewpoint for anyone above the rank of the Standard Guardsman. He was one of the first people to point to the Astral Claws around the time of the Badab War and go, these fellas ain't right, kill them with hammers. He was the sort of Inquisitor who would take prisoners first and ask questions never, which while in some ways does make him a bit better than the more trigger-happy ones, is also more monstrous because he's torturing them. And the Space Marine he captures, Titus included, are sure enough not only tortured both physically and psychically, but have a habit of never being released back to their home chapters. Marnius Calgar himself would repeatedly ask Thrax where the hell Titus was, but he was always ghosted by the Inquisitor. Eventually, the Ultramarines erected a statue of Titus in their fortress monastery, honoring what many surely thought is just another fallen hero of the chapter. Titus would suffer this torture for over a century during this time, enduring it all the while. Eventually, freedom would come from an oh-so-perfectly ironic source. Inquisitor Thrax, on his way to deal with a chapter of Space Marines that had become corrupted by chaos, was himself possessed by a demon and slain by none other than the Grey Knights. Another Inquisitor from the Ordo Malleus found his secret stash of Space Marines and sent them to be tested for any impurities. Naturally, Titus passed with flying colors, but he's been changed a bit. Turns out a century of inquisitorial torture can make even the greatest of them all a bit jaded and bitter. No major spoilers for Space Marine 2, but Titus has become far more displeased towards the Inquisition in general. Based on in-game cutscenes, he seems to have developed a habit of keeping things close to his chest and not sharing information he doesn't deem relevant to the mission. Hard to blame him for this too much. A bit more sadly than that is that Titus felt he could no longer return to the chapter. From his perspective, the Ultramarines never contacted him, and he took that as a sign he was no longer worthy to rejoin his brothers. Shame none of the Inquisitors or Grey Knights he doubtlessly spoke to at some point saw fit to inform him Thrax was just not passing the messages along, but that's Imperial bureaucracy for ya. Instead, he officially joined the Death Watch under the name Nullus as a Black Shield, allowing him to serve the Imperium in some capacity still. Not feeling he was worthy of even keeping his goddamn name, this was the best he could get. Self-esteem issues aside, he naturally served under the Death Watch well, until Space Marine 2 happens. And while I did say no spoilers for the game for the most part, tutorial spoilers don't count, and you can see he's a Primaris in the trailer. But if that bothers you, skip ahead with the video chapters. They gone? Okay, good. I don't mean to sound rude, but it really isn't that mind-blowing. It's the story that needs to be part of a hack-and-slash murderthon game. It's just there to get us to the killing. Titus and his Deathwatch team were deployed to the planet Kataku, which was under a heavy assault by Tyranid forces.
It's one thing to me, too, about Space Marine 2. It's one of the complaints that I have, right? So, like, the upgrade to Primaris in the game, like, literally does nothing. You know what I'm saying? You don't get any kind of new cool abilities or anything else. It's still just the same as it was at the start of the game. Granted, you know, you're just going through the tutorial, but I mean, you know, you fight off waves of Tyranids by yourself and you end up fighting and killing, but also, I guess, getting mortally wounded by Carnifex, right? And then, yeah, they have to put you through the Primaris surgery in order to save your life. I don't know. It just feels like there should have been more. I don't know. It just felt like there wasn't like anything special about the Primaris upgrade, you know, in the game. Whereas lore-wise, you know, when you get the Primaris stuff, you become even more of a badass. You're a tier above just your average Space Marine.
He was knocked off his ship during entry, the rest of his Deathwatch team either dies right before or right after he arrives to link up with them, and he tries to solo a Carnifex, which goes exactly as well as you'd think it would. During this time, the chief librarian of the Ultramarines, Varo Tigurius, had sensed his soul and ordered Titus's old cruiser to beeline it for him. They arrived just in time to save him, but since he was pretty brutally injured, the only choice to keep him alive was to have him undertake the Rubicon Primaris. Some people were iffy about him coming back, but Tigurius had sensed that he had no taint of chaos within his soul. And like I said with Calgar earlier, when the guy strong enough to talk to the hive mind of the Tyranid says you're in the clear, you're probably in the clear. Being a video game protagonist, he naturally survives the process, and the rest is gloriously rendered high-definition murdery history. Something something Tyranids, something something Thousand Suns, something something please stop trying to get me to buy Zangor's Games Workshop, it's not gonna happen. Now, why do people like this guy? Well, saying anything definitive might get me yelled at, so I can tell you why I like him. For one, video game protagonist. You know an easy way to get someone to like a character? Have them control the dude for a fun campaign. Titus is the character of a game that, while certainly not revolutionary, was good fun and a nice little taste of the 40k universe. Indeed, learning about some very small basics of 40k through the first Space Marine isn't the worst of ideas, even if the only real takeaways you'd get are the Ultramarines can tear through orcs and demons like nobody's business. His feats are the kind of stuff that in a book would get people calling BS on him, but since we're butchering our way through the enemies as Titus, it's a different story. This isn't a criticism, just something I've noticed. Speaking of Ultramarines though, while I'm not entirely sure on when exactly the height of Ultramarine glazing was, when Space Marine came out in 2011, it was certainly still in the minds of people. So fans of 40k might have initially expected Titus to be another boring Ultramarine character going on about Gilliman and the Codex and all that crap, and then the game ends with him looking Leandros in the eyes and calling him a failure for refusing to do anything but look at the Codex for guidance. In the meta context of 40k at the time, that makes him a damn noteworthy character. And he's a pretty cool one, all things considered. He's humble, giving at least the slightest bit of care about guardsmen and battle brothers around him. He's highly driven, powering through all adversity against the odds. And he's seemingly immune to warp corruption, a neat plot hook that could go in a few different ways.
Right.
Take your bets now, folks. Blank Titus, Imperial Saint Titus, or just plain willpower. Two sort of repeat.
I mean, the blank Titus would be interesting, but I mean, it seems like, again, from the end of Space Marine 2, the fact that in subtitles it says the Emperor is talking to him. Seems like he has the blessings of the Emperor. So that's why I think he's going to be kind of more of a main character pushing things forward in the present story. And why I think it's a likely candidate that he's who Henry Cavill might play in in this cinematic universe they're developing for Amazon.
To point though, him being a badass video game character undoubtedly helps. There are deeper, more well-written characters in 40k. There are more fun characters in 40k. Even
true.
Ignoring anything like taste or how well-written you might perceive him as, there are plenty of characters with
I mean, just look at the Supreme Chapter Master of the Grey Knights, Drago. The Giga Chad that is, his accomplishments in killing, greater demons and defeating Mortarion and literally walking around burning Nurgle's garden like it's nothing. You compare that to the accomplishments that Titus has done, Titus really hasn't done a whole lot to compared to a lot of other characters in the 40k universe. So for sure, the guy ended up being the main guy out of the first game. Also haven't finished either, but I think that's the case. What do you mean by thinking of? I mean, in Space Marine 2 at the very end, they show in subtitles the Emperor talking to Titus, if that's what you're talking about.
with far more screen time than Titus could ever dream of. But when we see Titus, we see him as we play him, a space marine ripping his way through countless hordes of orcs, tyranids, and more. It's fun to watch Titus do his thing, in part because we're right there with him. Is it a bit of an unfair advantage compared to novel-only characters? Maybe, but I personally think it's just a sign GW should really invest in making characters more fun like that. In fact, I'll just come out and say it. Bring back Matt Ward writing. Just have everyone get Matt Ward writing equally. If everyone has plot armor, no one has plot armor.
True.
Or at least the imaginary fights with our toy army dudes can be that much cooler. And that's
True.
Dimitri and Titus. I still hate saying his first name, but he's a real cool dude. Go play Space Marine 2 now. It's out for everyone. Even the people who don't instinctively pre-order things with a skin of something they like on it. Thank you as always to my wonderful channel members. You are the Captain Titus to my Ultramarines, the beating heart and soul of what makes this channel great. If you'd like to support the channel, feel free to subscribe or become a member. Either way, thank you for watching and take care out there. I think Space Marine 3 should feature Titus teaming up with an Eldar and a kin to fight off a Genestealer cult on a planet in the middle of an orc invasion. Then the twist villain that's not actually a twist can be the Necrons, because for the love of God, when every single second act twist is, it was chaos the whole time, it stops being fun. And then...
That's true. That's true. That happened in both Space Marine games so far. It was like, you know, actually the chaos the whole time.
In the third act, they reveal the entire thing was orchestrated by Albert Wesker. Not someone like Albert Wesker, just straight up Albert Wesker. Why? Why not?
Alright. Well, there we go. That was Captain Titus, the greatest of them all by Pancras Newark. And I mean, I do agree with him. I think Titus is a good character. I think there are certain things about him that are interesting. And depending on how, I guess, things happen with him in the future, will determine, I guess, how interesting of a character he is, right? I guess that's the way to say it, because again, right, like the whole him being at least resistant to the warp is interesting in and itself. What does that mean? Does that mean he has some latent psyker powers that he's unaware of? Is he again some kind of, you know, blank in some way, which I thought only certain females had that thing. It was like another one of those gene things. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I thought it was one of those gene things. That's why it's like the Sisters of Silence, because it's like a genetic trait that certain females can have, right? Is that whole blank thing. Just like men can only be Space Marines because the gene seed genetic stuff is only compatible with male physiology, kind of a thing. But maybe I'm incorrect about that. But I mean, yeah, if he is some kind of strange, you know, psyker blank Space Marine, that could be interesting. But I feel like because of the end of Space Marine 2, it's more of a situation where he's got the Emperor's blessing, and some more of what he's talked about in his background with him kind of having plot armor, and certain things have happened to I guess put him in the right place at the right time in multiple different instances. Kind of makes it feel more like, yeah, it's more of the latter, where it's the Emperor has plans for him. That is also intriguing to see where that's gonna go. And again, as I've stated in this video several times, I feel like he moving forward is gonna be kind of the face of the Space Marines, or at least the Ultramarines moving forward, because I don't know how much they want to, like, I feel like they're going to do more with some of the Primarchs, being some of the Primarchs have returned, right? With obviously Gilliman and the Lion returning. And I feel like more are probably going to be coming, right? With also them, I guess, doing more stuff with, you know, they just released the new model for Fulgrim. And I think they have some books coming out that deal with, I guess, Fulgrim returning in the lore, and maybe Angron 2, something like that. I don't know. But you know, I feel like they're gonna have that level of stuff, but then they also want to have kind of, I guess, more of what you could say like a ground level, you know, another kind of Loken character, right? Someone who is important to the story but isn't necessarily like on a Primarch level, and Titus fits that bill. And again, I think it's very possible that Henry Cavill could play Titus in this, the whatever the Amazon show is going to be. Not that, you know, that's guaranteed, but I do think it's a good possibility moving forward. And again, after Titus also getting kind of his own more, I guess, background and lore shown in his, in that secret level animation, right? Where again, it kind of displays how he's very resistant to the influence of chaos and chaos demons, with him basically soloing seemingly a greater demon of Tzeentch. Yeah, you know, he definitely seems like he's got more going on for him, so the Emperor seems to have a purpose. But yeah, good video, and it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen with him, you know, moving forward. I mean, it's Games Workshop, who knows? Games Workshop could absolutely have no plans for Titus whatsoever. You know, I mean, he's had a recent game about him. He's had a secret level, you know, episode about him. I think they even put a book out about him recently, but I could be mistaken about that, because I know they also put a new mini out of him recently. So it seems like they're going to be doing more with this character, but I mean, it's Games Workshop. So from what I understand, Games Workshop at a win could just abandon any kind of plans they have for him and move on to something else. So it could just be that we never see anything more from him whatsoever, but who knows? So yeah, again, this was Captain Titus, greatest of the greatest of them all, but Pankers don't work. Links in the description to all of his stuff. So please do me a favor, if you enjoyed this video of his, go to his channel, be sure to give it a like, check out any kind of sponsorship stuff he's got going on, his Patreon, his YouTube memberships. if you want to take your support for him to the next level. If you'd like to join us as I'm doing this reaction live right now with my YouTube members, love to have you guys come in and hang out and join our conversations that we have before, during, and after the videos. There's a join button underneath the video, as well as a link in the description to the YouTube membership benefits and tiers that I have to offer. You can get early access to videos, priority any kind of reaction requests you might have, stuff like that. So check it out if you have any interest in taking your support for my channel to the next level. Regardless, thank you guys for just coming in and hanging out. If you are still watching the video here at the very end, I greatly appreciate it. It means a lot for you to take the time out of your busy day to hang out and spend your time with me here and my members on this video. So thank you guys very much. Consider leaving a like and a sub if you enjoyed this video of mine with my commentary and reaction, as it helps me and the channel grow. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Hope you're having yourselves a wonderful day.